All righty. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Urban Ag Hour. We're so excited that you were able to join us this morning. Oh, we're so amazing that you were able to join us this morning and hear from Sorry about that, everyone. And hear from an amazing speaker today. The Urban Agriculture Production Small Scale and Beginning Farmer Program is partnered with USDA, NRCS, and FSA to offer this series. And today we will hear from Emily Heller, who is the owner of Bene Vivendo. And I will now hand it over to Emily and let you take it over from here. Emily, you're muted.
There we go. Hi.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tiffany, and the entire team at U of A Urban Ag. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this presentation today. It's lovely to be invited and to be part of such a vibrant community. And Tiffany, you can let me know if there are any issues with audio or the picture. Let me get started. The name of my farming entity is called Bene Vivendo, and that is Latin for the good life. And that is sort of conveys the joy and the intensity of what this undertaking really means to me, and the purposefulness of it, and how I go about it. It doesn't mean that everything is joyful, and that's pretty much what my talk is going to be about today. Even though I'm kind of a optimistic person, like to connect with people, like to build things and make things. Um, uh, Being a small scale grower in the low desert is full of challenges, and I've really enjoyed this process of making this attempt to be a local small scale farmer. So today I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I have learned in this process, and I'm going to start, I guess, with just a little bit of history about me. Um, Moved to Arizona in 1998, and at the time was a journalist. Had been a reporter for actual newspapers, as well as online, and I was a stringer for an online national news service when I moved to Arizona. I have a sort of a growing gardening family, and of course started dabbling in growing things, and just massive failure. Couldn't really figure out how to do things. And I discovered the University of Arizona uh, a vegetable planting calendar, which was the first step on this trajectory for me. The vegetable planting calendar is extremely important. It will set forth the seasons for groups of veggies, families of veggies. And if you have struggled with the basic first question of when do I plant that here in the low desert, and then this document will give you that founding. And so it's certainly not a perfect document, and it is based on climatological um, uh, 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 averages, which, as we all know, are in the midst of changing very significantly. So just because the calendar says you can plant something doesn't mean that you necessarily should. You have to apply your own common sense and the how the conditions have really changed. So the U of A calendar, and then other online publications, which are extremely valuable. And I would encourage you to explore all of those, and Tiffany can talk a little bit more about that. But there's basically a wonderful reference library at your fingertips, produced for the low desert conditions and the different types of plants that you want to go. I started taking some classes at the Desert Botanical Garden also, and I decided to become a master gardener. That was in 2014. I love that. It crystallizes so many things in terms of your exploration, but master gardeners are volunteers and teachers, and we try to help other people with their success in their own gardens. And the term is a bit anomalous because master uh, is um, is a pursuit and not a title. So, but I went right from my Master Gardener programming and certification right into what was called the Beginning Farmer Program, and this was in 2015 and in 2016. It was here in Maricopa County. I also did that program over in Pinal County. It was extremely valuable to me to shift from learning about the master gardener, basic botany and how to grow citrus and things like that, how to properly water, to go immediately into farmer training, which is fantastic. But and we delve deeper into all kinds of things, soil science and other stuff. But that program uh, changed my mindset from gardener to farmer. And that really did help me shift. And it is a shift. Great if you know how to grow stuff, but being successful as a market gardener is only in part based on your success as a grower. And so for 3 years, from 2015 to 2018, well, I was taking these farming classes right here in Phoenix and over in Florence. I started taking my produce to the farmers market, and the program that I participated in is called Community Exchange Table. And I started off at the downtown Phoenix public market. I did that for a few months and then shifted up to Uptown Farmers Market. The community exchange program is well founded. It is basically a table where locally grown produce, either in backyards or in small farms, come to the farmers market, and community exchange pays the fees, pays for the insurance. You take your produce beautifully presented and with all the proper signs and explanations about what you've grown, and you can drop it off at the table and walk away. Or what I did was bring my produce and then stand there and meet people and talk about locally grown and talk about what I had produced. I did this for 3 years, which is quite a long time to be in exploration mode with trying to explore the collision between me as a grower of local produce and the marketplace. And after 3 years of kind of establishing a teeny weeny little following, I created Bene Vivendo, and that was in 2018. And Uptown Farmers Market is my market. I'm a solo farmer and would love to expand to multiple markets, but as long as it's just me as the army of one, the one market is my location. And so, you know, there are 5 main things that I want to share with you today about that journey between having deadlines and editors to being at the farmers market with stuff that I've grown, and being at the behest of Mother Nature and trying to figure out how to make this work and how to have a continuity of production. It is really a kind of a mountain of minutia, but mindset is the most important part of it all. So, of the 5 things, let's start with where I had mentioned your first step on your journey on learning about the local conditions. Desert growing is different than really any other place where you might have gardened or even market farmed. It's so different here. It's opposite so many other climates, and um, uh, for I guess trying to think about a path of success, however you want to define that. It really begins with being a student of the low desert and um, uh, following absolutely well-founded advice. The internet is marvelous. We love our quick Google searches to bring up YouTube videos and so-called experts and gurus from all over the world, but so much of it is wrong, really wrong. And so I want to encourage you to kind of, if you've never really thought of yourself as like the tip of the spear in an inquiry, kind of think of yourself as like, well, what questions am I really trying to explore here? What information needs am I trying to satisfy? Kind of think like a reporter. You don't have to be an obnoxious reporter. There are plenty of those around, but think inquiry, dig. Sorry for the bad gardening pun, but dig. Do not be satisfied with one or two little sources. And even if you find a consensus of something, that actually may not be meaningful. You want well-founded advice. And yes, I had a lot of training through the U of A Extension, but I rely on other universities extremely heavily for practices, for understanding issues with pests, with fertility, with soil issues. And so the inquiry really never stops. Um, there's so much false information that's out there. I would encourage you to resist what might seem very easy. It's actually a rabbit hole, and there's absolutely no such thing as all you need to do for whatever problem you're trying to address is when 1, 2, 3. That is false. There's no easy anything. Market gardening, especially in the low desert, is like carrying around a big heavy sack. There's so many challenges, and in order to kind of have the likelihood of success in addressing the challenges and solving those problems and building on something is to make sure your practices are the correct ones. And I'm not talking about, oh, choose this variety of green bean over that one. That's fine. You can explore all of that. I'm talking about big decisions about what does my soil need, right? What am I going to put in? What kind of amendments am I going to put in and when? Um, um, we can't just follow blindly. Follow well-founded advice. So that's really number one. But don't laugh. But number two is success, or at least the pursuit of success, is really not based on number one. It's part of it, to be sure. There's nothing random about growing. We don't follow things blindly just because somebody suggests that. And we all know that soil is everything, right? Healthy soil, functioning soil. This is the firm foundation of any type of undertaking in this area. But I think the pursuit of success, we have to kind of take all of that gardening and growing stuff. We have to assume that all of us together, we know how to grow stuff, and that's fine. But the market part of this undertaking is really not there are other skills that I think you're going to need, and you're going to enjoy the development of in order to really look at what are you going to do as a market grower. And so the number two of the 5 things would be, okay, so you want to grow stuff and sell it commercially. Great, that's fantastic. But what are you gonna grow? What's your place in the market? And before you really launch anything or spend any money on anything, you got to really figure out how are you going to differentiate yourself and your products in the market. So you're really great at growing squash, and that's fantastic, but are you really just going to grow same old squash? If you go visit any farmer's market during the warm season, you're going to see a mountain of same old squash. So, but that's your favorite crop. So, okay, well, maybe find some specialty squash, or maybe be early, that like the earliest one. in the market, you have to find a little sliver, a little toehold where that you're going to hopefully occupy in the market. And how are you going to do that? You have to differentiate yourself. You don't want your prospective customers to be walking past you at the market and say, oh, there's a million of that in the market. Now, if you have an opportunity to um, have a conversation with some of those people and talk about how your stuff is really different, that's fine, but you want it to be overt. You want it to be obvious. You have to stand out, and the only way to do that is to differentiate. Um, uh, the it's so hard. It's hard enough to grow stuff, and if you choose to grow the same old stuff that's out there, I think it will be frustrating for you that you'll never kind of get a place that you occupy in the market. So number three is sort of something that might surprise you. And we spend so much time focusing on our best practices, right, for gardening, and even, let's say you've done your deep dive and you've come up with all these fantastic, very clever, very exciting ways to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Well, the bottom line is, so what? If you don't find people, customers who value locally grown produce and value you as a local farmer, if you don't connect with these people, then you're going to be giving away a lot of your produce, and that's valuable too, or you can donate it, and that's a lovely thing. But if you really are trying to make a commercial venture here, then finding and connecting meaningfully and sustainably with the market is everything. It's great to be a grower and it's great to have fantastic products, but unless you find your people, then it's an incomplete circle. And it's extremely meaningful when you do connect with these people, and it feels like a circle is being completed. So number four of the five things is that this undertaking, this adventure, has massive demands, really massive demands of two main things that you may or may not feel comfortable with. And number one, and that is physical labor. I'm not a spring chicken. I have a ton of energy, but the physical labor demands are absolutely substantial. And being able to lift heavy things, carry heavy things, sustain that kind of work all day. And if you end up at the farmer's market, then think about this. You've got all your produce, you grew it, you packed it for market, it's ready to be transported, and maintaining the temperature post-harvest, taking care of all of those quality things that you've got to do. Load it up in whatever vehicle you're going to be going to market in, including all of your display gear, tents, tables, tablecloths, signage, all of that goes to market, has to be unloaded and set up and made a beautiful presentation. And then at the end of market, all of that loaded back and then driven back and unloaded again wherever you're going to be storing all that stuff. And this has nothing to doesn't even address the carrying huge sacks of heavy things, big heavy boxes. The physical demands are not are not something to be waved away. They're substantial. So that means to take care of your body, stretch. My orthopedist yells at me for not stretching because overuse of your body plus failure to stretch is a trajectory for injury. So caring for your body is extremely important. And the second thing where there's massive demands, and this is a bit shocking, but there are massive money demands as well. I have a very favorite mentor who cracked this joke on, I think, day one in the beginning farmer classes. And she said, okay, how do you make a small fortune in farming? And we were like, I don't know. I hope it'll happen to me, but I don't know. How do you do it? And she goes, well, you make a small fortune by starting off with a large fortune. So expect your bank account to dwindle. There are resources out there, and I see Phil Jaquez is on this conversation, can talk about the cost sharing contracts with NRCS. There are grants that are available. There are certainly loans that are available. There are funds available, but there's really no such thing as free money where this is concerned. The demands of money are substantial, and so have resources, or at least be aware of how you can pursue grants and cost sharing contracts and other sources of money. Stuff is expensive. Um, and so be prepared to spend big. Number 5, and that is, I've kind of touched on this a little bit through all of this, and that is for this undertaking to be okay, to be comfortable with the idea of and the feeling of never leaving the steepest part of the learning curve of any part of this activity. It's not easy. It drains you physically, it drains you financially, it challenges your ability to kind of keep going when stuff happens, and you should expect stuff to happen. Um, um, you're permanently on that steep learning curve, and my background as a reporter, that's very much a function of that. So I'm okay with that. It doesn't bug me, but I I'm always a little surprised when and people talk about, like, hooray, are you celebrating? And yes, I have big smiles on my face, and it's great fun to do this. But um, you're going to build strong muscles with that uphill slog feeling that this activity demands. Um, I don't believe in achieving that it's really possible to achieve mastery, even though, the that's what we're in pursuit of. But that's that's the trajectory, which is keep going, keep trying. Failure is all around you, and to hug it when it happens, and build and change things when failure inevitably comes, and not be beaten down by it. And it can help you build a foundation. And so um, I I'm I'm optimistic. I like doing this. It feels very purposeful. It's fantastic as a small grower, to be able to contribute to the local food supply feels magnificent. And we are so fortunate that we have that capability, and that it's possible to do this. Um, it feels kind of a bit magical that even the tiny grower that I am, that I can have a teeny sliver of the marketplace. But it has demanded, and it continues to demand, a skill a set, if you will, a combination of skills, communication skills, a mindset of keep going, keep trying, embracing the difficulty of this. And one of the, I think, most important parts of being a market grower is that when you're in the marketplace, to really push your communication skills and your community skills, which is you're part of something that's really important, to be able to contribute to the local food production, and to kind of celebrate your participation in that, and to find other people like Local First Arizona, Edible Phoenix Magazine, the U of A Extension. There's so many people out there that want to help you get your firm footing, and to be able to contribute to this as well. And the last thing I'll leave you with, and it's not really one of the 5 things, but if you do end up at the farmer's market and you got your produce there, leave your chair at home. if you're sitting there um, uh, behind your table or even next to your table, sitting does not convey good things for farmers. So leave your chairs at home, make your display beautiful, connect with people, express your gratitude and appreciation for people who value locally grown produce. And I haven't really talked very much about the difference between growing produce versus growing flowers. In my opinion, all the things that I mentioned apply equally across the board. Um, and Finding the market, all those things, whether it's food or flowers, all of these things apply. And so I am so excited to hear your questions, to connect with you, and to find out what things, what additional mistakes that I've made that I can share with you so you can avoid those errors.
Thank you so much, Emily, for that wonderful presentation. We do have a few questions already. I'm sure we'll get plenty more. Everyone, feel free to pop your question in the chat. So I will get started with some questions. What are your marketing/outreach efforts to build your customer base?
Wow, it's something that it's continually growing and becoming building on a foundation. As far as I'm concerned, I never stop being in customer development mode, and that is when I'm standing in line um, at Target and at the gas station, putting gas in my van, which does have my logos on it. Um, what may seem like a kind of just a moment of solace that you may have out in public, people may ask you about it, especially if you have a clothing with your logo on it or something. Be prepared to meet your a prospective customer at any time. And so the primary methods that I go about in building my customer base, I started out with an Instagram page and only recently created a website. So I used Instagram very heavily at the beginning, and just as a way of introducing myself. And of course, imagery of produce and flowers is extremely important, especially for me because I tend to grow the more unusual varieties of things. And so pictures were super important really in that first year. And I don't even think I put a picture of myself on my Instagram page for quite a while. I I uh, I wanted to show how beautiful everything looked, and so I connected with other other beginning farmers and all the programming that I took. I I at the farmers market, meeting all the people who are in management at the farmers markets and making sure they know all about you and that they fall in love with you and you love them, that you kind of look after each other. The farmers market people want you as the farmer to be successful, to have lots of activity at your booth, and basically the farmers market needs to promote you as the local farmer, and so it's a lovely shared relationship. And so it's always being in connect mode. Um, um, Conversations with everyone, putting it's really, the bottom line is it requires putting yourself out there on a continual basis. So yes, I did start off with Instagram. That kind of jump started things. My website is only about a year old, maybe even less, and I'm kind of struggling with how to keep it up to date. It's so much easier just to post on Instagram and to announce things, and what products are coming to market, and people can engage with you. It's very, very straightforward. I created a Facebook page, but I've never used it. Instagram is much more effective for me. And so I also connected with the potential wholesale restaurant folks. I we used to use the term cold call back in the day when we actually made phone calls. But I sent introductory emails around to various restaurants and chefs, um, um, just in sort of the potential promotion really never goes away. When you get a good abundant yield of something, to really think about, well, okay, other than retail, what are the restaurants that appreciate locally grown, and you're familiar with their menu, and you might send them a hello email with some pictures and offer to bring a sample so that they can taste it and smell it and experience it, and be prepared to offer samples of things. And so it really does require being in constant kind of surveillance mode of, oh, that restaurant has just promoted some kind of delicious dish with produce from another farm. Oh, well, I've got something that's different than that, but really good. And so you're constantly looking for um, uh, new distribution outlets. And as you get a little traction in that, and that you're going to find that's great, but you want to just widen that foundation as much as possible. There is a whole separate thing of wholesale, school system, large large scale transactions, not retail. So I do mostly retail and a little bit of wholesale and restaurant. There's also, I really want to put out a shout out about something called Sun Produce Co-op. And if one of you lovely folks can put their website in the chat. Sun Produce Co-op is a food aggregator that takes local produce and local products and sells it to restaurants, to school systems, to the food bank network. It is a fantastic way for a small scale producer to get their food out there. And the founder of it is Cindy Gentry, who also founded the Downtown Phoenix Public Market. She is so dedicated to local produce. She's not in Phoenix anymore. She runs Sun Produce Co-op from some other state, but she does a magnificent job. And so if you have a yield, if you have products, especially as things kind of get close to harvest and you're watching the development of your crop, and I'm thinking that you're going to be able to have a good yield, then contact Cindy and become really close to her, because she is one of your best advocates for distribution that is in one transaction. You would be visible across a wide platform of potential outlets. I adore Cindy, and I have just sort of begun selling through her. But it is solid, and it provides a fantastic opportunity for local produce. So that was a really big question on how do I look for my outlets? How do I build a customer base? But from day one, it is person by person, organization by organization. And the more you do it, the more you're going to need to do it. But this requires very good communication skills, and also being very okay with being rejected, or having all of your inquiries, or a good bit of them, not even responded to. So love rejection, it's coming your way. But
All right.
you're going to find people who are delighted to hear from you and can't wait to taste the produce or purchase the flowers that you've seen. Oh, can I mention one more thing, Tiffany?
Go for it.
For flower growers, there is a brand new flower collective that just is not even a year old. Arizona Flower Collective is it's right now, it's being operated out of Baseline Flowers, which is a florist right there on Baseline Road. Kathy Nakagawa is the host of the collective, and it's seasonal. So if you are really thinking about growing flowers only for the wholesale market, and that's an absolutely wonderful and viable market, then you can sell through the collective. There, it has a fantastic website. You post images, descriptions of all the flowers that you have available, not just flower color, but stem length and all these wonderful things. And then florists purchase and then come to Baseline Flowers to pick up your orders. And so I've dabbled a little bit with this. It's brand new, basically. But if you are really thinking about flowers, then I would strongly encourage you to get in touch with the Flower Collective because it's so new. Get it on the ground floor, and you could have a wholesale only outlet and connecting with local florists that are wanting to purchase locally grown flowers is sort of a budding thing. Sorry for the bad pun, but it's a real deal, and it's a fantastic and kind of a very recent development, and I encourage you to explore.
Awesome. Thank you for all that information. The next question, do you have a business plan?
Yes, I created business plans when I went through the beginning farmer training, um, coming up on, almost 10 years ago, 2016. They need to be updated because so many things have changed since then. And a lot of curveballs have come my way since then. So I do have one, but it is woefully out of date. And I would encourage all of you to make one and to keep it kind of close at hand. Keep it with your planting scheme, where you keep track of everything you've planted, the time it was planted, and when you expect harvest and all those things. Have your business plan close in hand with that, so you can make modifications. The summer is a fantastic time to grow cover crops. We're not in so much production here in the low desert, and I'm telling myself I should use those downtimes, quote unquote downtimes, to put a polish on and update and bring closer to reality the business plans. They really should be an ongoing kind of breathing, changing thing. I need to work on mine. I concede that.
If I could ask a quick question to the business planning that you do, even if it's just in your head and in downtime. So when is your downtime?
Well, I do take hiatuses from the farmer's market. So I do have a farmer's market season. January is one of those hiatus times, which is why I'm able to come to you today. But I use the quote unquote downtimes from market, my hiatus times, to do lots and lots of field work. And so my market season runs February through around the 4th of July. And so January is a downtime for me from market, and I prepare fully as much as possible for the coming of the warm season. I know it's chilly today. It was 29 at my house this morning, but the hot weather is right around the corner. It's going to hit with a cement pie in the face. So it always is rather shocking. So January is a fantastic time to turn the beds, amend the soil, add fertility for the next crops that you're going to be planting. Add the structures that that your crops are going to need. Do soil testing if as needed. January is a sort of a slow growth time for plants. Metabolically, they're kind of a little sleepy, right? But when that warm season comes, you're going to see explosive growth and to get ahead of weeds. It's just I wouldn't call it a housekeeping time. I would call it a time of intense activity, but to eliminate issues that may kick you in the butt later on. So my other quote unquote downtime is July, August, and September. Those are my market off times. But July, I do try to take a little bit of breathing time, but just usually a few days, because August we need to plant, or I need to plant in order to have crops to be able to get back when my market season begins again October 1st. But during the summer months, the monsoon months, where we do have the prospect of the possibility of rain and certainly higher humidity, is a fabulous time to work on soil quality and to cover crop, and to change gears. Let's say that you've tried a couple different things in an area, and you're suspecting that there's an issue with salinity or compaction or caliche or some issue, so using the quote unquote downtime to problem solve the really big problems. Like say you need to shift gears in your growing beds. When you're a market grower, the market is extremely demanding. You start your harvest several days before, and it all has to be maintained at temperature, packed up appropriately, beautifully, to maintain the quality. And this is it's a demanding thing to undertake, and big problems require more than just a day and a half before market prep begins. And so that's how I use my quote unquote downtime. And that doesn't mean that you don't nibble away at problems during the market season. You do, but if let's say you need to travel around to go visit another farm, that's a fantastic way to use your quote unquote off-market time. But I'll tell you this, the life of a farmer, and even teeny farmer like me, you're always in farmer mode. It really never goes away, because as your brain is kind of engaged, you're thinking like, how do I shift gears? How do I modify things? How do I connect more with people? What audiences am I missing? What opportunities am I missing? So if all of this sounds really dreadful, like this churning going on in your brain the whole time, then maybe something different would be better for you. But you never leave work, or I should say, work never leaves you.
Emily, how have you created a supportive community around you?
Well, all of you know the answer to that, and even those of you who are meeting me for the first time, and that is to connect with people whose approach and whose spirit really resonates with you. And farmers can be a kind of an antisocial bunch. Sorry. Not everybody is really interested in connecting with you. And so I did an online thing with a farmer whose name may be familiar to you. His name is Jam Fortier. He is a Canadian farmer. He's written a fantastic book called The Market Gardener, and please, somebody add that to the chat. It's such a worthwhile book. And follow him on all of his social media. And he comes to Phoenix regularly. In fact, you lovely people from U of A Extension hosted JAM last fall in a fantastic program. So please connect with this guy. He's so good. I have attended programs that he's given here in Phoenix, but I also do a lot of his online stuff as well. And so I'm going to share with you something that he said in one of these online things, and have to translate about a little bit of the profanity out of it. I'll clean it up, I promise. But he was talking about farmers and the people around them and their community. And so as a grower, all kinds of people are going to want to connect with you. And the question is, do you want to connect with them? And so you got to really kind of develop a bit of a gut feeling about who are the right people who I want to have with me in this undertaking. And so JM, who is sort of a funny little French Canadian dude, he said, well, you have opportunities, but you have to really trust. You don't want to be chasing all these rabbits around all the time. So the people who should be in your orbit, you have to choose them if they resonate. And I would say Okay, I have to translate, not out of the French, but out of the profane. He says, choose people that you feel like are hell yeah, those are your people. And all the ones that you're like, I'm not so sure, or they, any kind of reservation that you have, those are not your people. And so have that feeling of like, hell yeah, that feeling, trust it. And that's your community. If you feel like you're chasing somebody and they're giving you the stiff arm, then that's not your person. But be selective. Not everybody wants to be involved, or not everybody's interested, but the people who are should really resonate with you. And those are your folks.
Amazing. Another question we have, which Philip actually answered, so I'll to ask the question and give the answer, is
Good.
what's the minimum space or land that you need to start a small farm? And Philip responded, the minimum size of a farm, if you wish to establish a farm record with USDA Farm Service Agency, is digitalized to 0.0 acres, which is about 325 square feet.
Which is tiny. It's
Which is
really
tiny.
small. So, land size. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for chiming in on that. A big land is not necessary. And Tiffany, would this be a good time for me to mention that I am a multi-location grower?
Yeah.
I have a substantial backyard garden, which is where I did a lot of experimentation, and I grow things to this day. Um, and I'm looking out right now at some of the things that are growing here. But I got access to larger pieces of land and by putting myself out there and talking to people and asking about unused land and in pursuit of. And that's a whole other can of worms when you are that I don't know that we're going to talk about today with only 10 minutes left. But being a multi-location farmer is bonkers. I don't encourage anybody to do it. The only reason why I do it is because I have to. I have no access to farmland, and so I farm with the permission of other people and with under special arrangements, financial and otherwise. But anyway, you can grow a lot of food on a very small piece of land. So I got started in my backyard. And so don't feel discouraged if you don't have access to farmland. Actually, would encourage you, especially if you're a beginning grower here in the low desert, to not seek farmland, to get your first couple of seasons of failure out of the way. Maybe if you have a community garden you have access to, or maybe like your next door neighbor, there's a little piece of land or something, but start small and fill your compost with all of the failed produce on a small scale before you even think about leasing or getting access to farmland somewhere else.
So I have a question for you. What approximate square feet did you get started in way back then in your backyard versus years later? What is your current in production square footage on average?
Okay, great question. Well, I basically built raised beds in my backyard, and right now I have 12 of them. They're 4 feet by 8 feet, and I rotate the crops and I do all the sort of the farming things. As I used to explain to people, I garden like a farmer, and so 11 raised beds with one 11 by 11 foot kind of in-ground bed. That when I got this house, it was a desert tortoise habitat. So there was no irrigation, it was full of cacti. It was really interesting, but when we bought the house, the tortoise didn't come with it. So we decided to make a little garden where the tortoise had been living. So that required removing things like apple cactus, and it was very goofy, but we did it. And by the way, we didn't start off with 11 beds. We started off with 3. So 3 little 4x8 beds. We built them ourselves. We irrigated, built out the irrigation, filled them with compost, and so off to the races then. And when was that? This would have been like 2012. Before then, I just had a tiny little corner of the backyard. Barely got enough sun to grow Swiss chard back there. But so 2012, 3 little raised beds. And now it's probably in production right now, about a 1/4 acre. And then in addition to that, I am creating building a brand new site that's 1.2 acres that has a ways to go before production can begin, but we're building from scratch an unused piece of land that's requiring every single thing that you can imagine. And so from soil to irrigation to wildlife pressure to everything. This expansion is going to be substantial. But right now I'm on a 1/4 acre. It used to be closer to 3/4 of an acre, but that's one of the sort of the difficulties of farming on land that's owned by someone else, that you lose access to it, even though everyone is smiley and in agreement, and you have your activities as a farmer. It often changes. So amount of land has definitely increased, and the production increased with that. And but my plan is to consolidate everything at this brand new location, which, by the way, is about 5 minutes from my house. All the other locations where I farmed, and I live in Tempe, but all the other locations where I farmed were 30 minutes away from my house. Don't do that. You're going to spend all your time in your vehicle and changing out all the gear. Like at one location, you have a big weeding issue or a big planting issue or big something. And another location later that afternoon, you've got planting, so you're constantly in shifting gear. What I do is kind of by the seat of my pants, out of necessity, but I really wanted to encourage you to not be a multi-location farmer. It is bonkers.
Oh, we have time for.
Yeah. Sorry, I have one more question for you.
Yeah, no, I was just saying we have one more
Yeah.
question. We have time for one more question, so go ahead.
Okay. Alrighty. So let's I kind of have 2 questions, but
Hit me. I love it.
I'm gonna hit you. All right. So um you discuss like your production, your harvesting, time, locations, business planning. And also like the size of your land and how it's changed over the years and your in production land. So also like how has your actual production by variety and strategy changed over time? So let's say your choices of flowers, or maybe you were doing vegetables, more vegetables than flowers, and it kind of converted to flowers over the years. Like, are you meeting customer demand? Are you, as you're selling and being face to face with customers, are you taking into account what works, what doesn't work, like that customer feedback? Maybe you saw something in a magazine, you're like, gotta grow that. Like, what has changed over time for you, and how did you make those decisions?
Such a brilliant question. And that is the nub of everything. And that's what I'm referring to when I talk about your things are in constant flux, right? There, you're constantly exploring and shifting and wondering and visualizing. Is that the right variety for me? Is it worth investing in the purchase of seeds, the purchase of plugs? Will it work here? Is the season so long on something that it would get fried by the time that harvest would take place? So I guess, Sarah, I think and I've done this continually for the food and flowers part of what I do, because any business is constantly thinking about, like, is what I've selected to bring to the marketplace, is it going to connect with people? Even though I try really hard to find people to connect with and to promote it. Um, is it the right thing? Okay, let's say it isn't the right thing. Like, so how am I going to shift gears? Do I drop it completely and then focus on a different commodity? Well, or do I just maybe offer something that maybe I'll be able to be at the market earlier than my competition? So there are too many of these variables to, like, pinpoint, like, how do you navigate that minefield? And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about hugging failure, because things not working out to your expectation is a continual. It's like, think about a bowl of pudding that you're constantly eating. That it didn't work out. How do I shift? What things should I change? Should I change at all? Should I just try again? That's all of these variables are decisions that you have to make, and nobody can really make that for you. Like, you're people wagging their finger and telling you, well, all you got to do is blah, blah, blah. That's false. It is absolutely false. So I love to experiment, Sarah. I love to try to see, can I pull that off within the framework of our desert growing environment, which is pretty tight parameters from an environmental standpoint. How much water will that take? How much soil fertility is that thing going to take? Can I afford the cost of the plugs? Do I have time to invest to grow something from seed? And so all of these things, it feels very sloshy, right? It's all this stuff that you're trying to juggle, but it's this mush, this center thing that feels very powerful when it hits, right? You get feedback from your customers like, wow, that was so good what I got from you last week. Do you have any more? And I gave my extra to my neighbor and she wants me to buy some today. Like, okay, here we go. And so what my crop list changes season over season, it changes continuously. So yes, I have my tried and true that people have come to expect from me, and I got to have it because if I don't grow it, they're going to ask about it. And then I always have, so here's a tried and true, and I have a little bit of margin on either side of experimentation because I love that. I love that. I'm not afraid to mess it up. I love to try, and I don't like invest like in the entire amount of the budget in something that's totally weird or different, but that is probably not going to work. There's always some foundation for the possibility of success. So I would say embrace the sloshy pudding of everything, of all your choices, and keep track of everything. What I've noticed as a flower farmer when I purchase seed is that even though I purchase based on the Latin name, the botanical name, there's a wide difference in quality. And let's say you buy seeds from a couple of different providers, and one of them is way better than the other. Well, wouldn't it be great to know which one that was? So be a dork, get a great big notebook, create whatever. If you like doing things electronically, then carry your electronic thing around in a backpack in the field or whatever, but record, because what you're doing is you're creating your own calendar, your own firm foundation of what worked and what to continue, what to expand production of. Yeah, okay, that was a good variety of green bean. Let's get a pound of those seeds next time rather than like a quarter pound. Oh, this other one was so much earlier. Oh, what a good idea that would be. But record, because you're creating your own encyclopedia for your path of being able to do this with some measure of success. By the way, the one thing that I forgot to mention, Sarah, and it very much ties in exactly with your question, which is your number one asset of those of us who are trying to grow, it's not your bank account. Of course, you got to have that. And it's not these lovely people who you're seeing who are presenting this today, and or even your community of people who are potential helpers for you. Your number one asset is your time. And how are you going to spend it? It is an asset to be allocated really intelligently. So that is why I discourage you from going down weird rabbit holes with weird things and that are probably not going to work and are not a well-founded place for you to build on. So time, guard it jealously, spend it wisely, and
I agree. Yeah,
and
it's
and
very important.
find
Yeah.
your path that is yours and yours alone.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I found myself personally after at least by year 2 of farming a quarter acre, I kept on asking myself, how am I a lazy farmer? Because I just want to find a way to do this with the least amount of time with the highest reward possible.
That's the sweet
So,
spot. It's the
the
sweet
sweet
spot.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all in
Absolutely.
pursuit of that. And that's what I
Yeah.
mean, that we'll never achieve mastery because the variables are too flexible. There's too many curveballs. We
Mhm.
try for that, but
Yeah.
and we can
So
be
you become
successful.
picky.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said. Absolutely. Well, Emily, thank you so much. Very much appreciate. I feel this is a unique urban ag hour where you are able to give farmers a realistic perspective of the life of a farmer, not just in field, but off the field. So I appreciate it. Thank
It's
you.
been my pleasure, and I would encourage everyone participating to feel free to get in touch with me on my Instagram, bene.vivendo, my website. You can email me from the website, and my website does need some updating right now. It's a little out of season because my market season is a little bit, it's a couple weeks away from starting that again. And I also have shared with the U of A Ag folks some of my references that I use particularly as a flower farmer, and that I could also continue to rely on for guidance, particularly cultural guidance, and culture meaning growing culture, like um, uh, uh, how to grow from seed, how to grow from plug, how to maintain the temperature, the fertility, all of these very crazy and very challenging variables, especially for flowers. So I would not really rely on just the internet for flower growing. These two references are absolutely well founded. They're on solid ground, and don't mess around with spending a lot of, you can waste so much money in flower farming by exploring stuff that will just come up with you'll be empty handed at the end of it, and your bank account will be a lot lighter. So well-founded advice, stick with it, and not just fruity squirrels trying to get your attention on the internet.
All right. Well, thank you, Emily, and thank you everyone for attending this month's Urban Ag Hour. We posted a ton of wonderful resources in the chat, so everyone please take full advantage of those. We really hope that you enjoyed this month's Urban Ag Hour, and we're looking forward to seeing you next month on February 26th. Thank you again, Emily, and you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.